over to Kevin Smith, and Kevin, you should be able to take control and show your screen.
All right, you should be able to see my desktop now. It's my login to Sage 100 Contractor. And as Tim brought out, I want to thank everybody for attending today. As Tim also brought out, one of the focuses today is really looking at the service management modules, making sure that those people that own it are getting their maximum value out of it, and those people that are looking at a service solution that's integrated with accounting and project management has an option of seeing what's available out there. We're also going to be showing along with this the mobile tie-in application. So if you have a technician out in the field, how they can use tablets out in the field to be able to communicate with the office and share information and keep that double entry from happening all the time. So again, I appreciate the time we have here. I'm going to try to keep it to 30 or 40 minutes so I can show your time is valuable. When you first log into Sage 100, this is what you see. You see the different menu options on the left. You see the menu categories across the top. And depending on which category you choose, the flow charts change. And so as you can see over here on the left, Sage 100 Contractor is a fully integrated estimating, accounting, project management, and service management using the whole database. You'll see a lot of the flexibility within it. We've talked to a lot of people that will use a separate, totally disconnected product for their service management, and then what they end up doing is retyping everything in as invoices so they can get it in their accounting system. So I'm going to show you kind of the best of both worlds to keep it all integrated into one system. Now, layered on top of the program is a dashboard. So it's an example of one of the dashboards out there, and we have different types of gadgets we can put on our dashboard. So we can see across the top, I can see my service receivable aging up here. I can see down here my top service receivable customers for the year, my cash balances, my income statement, my cash flow, and the jobs I have in the company. And any of these we double-click on will pull up the report that's associated with it, allow you to print the report or just view the report online. So I just want to briefly talk about some of those as we go through some of the reporting and dashboards within the system. Well, let's start off with the very basics of how we get a work order started and how we issue it out in the field. So I'm going to click on the little work order module. So the work order module, when it first comes in, I would select who my customer is. And so person calls in, I would select my customer. So I'm going to do the Hertz department. It brings out here that they're overdue, past due on a balance, so it allows me to override it if I have the authority. And then within that customer, I can pick which location the call is coming from. Now, one of the advantages on the location is that if all I know is the location and they give me the direct number to that location, I can type that number in and pull up both the location and the client associated with it. So we'll select the location there. So each one of the customers, and I'm going to drill down to the customer file. So here's my customer file. And within that customer file, I have a little subset of that, which is all of the locations attached to that customer. And we have an unlimited amount. And within each one of those locations, I can have a contact, I can have a map area, I can have special notes that print on the work order that are specific to that area. Also, what you'll see is any equipment that I have noted on the system that has been installed at that location, either by yourself or by somebody else, and you're doing the maintenance on it, I can track all that equipment with the manufacturer's part number, serial number, warranty information, last service date, all tied together in the system. So now I'm going to back out to the work order. So we have our work order here. We got a call in from Tom, and he's saying that the HVAC at apartment 101 isn't working. So I can put AC not working. I can put something as simple as that, or I can put an additional note to my technician that says, please see Tom at the apartment office. And so that way I can communicate with them. And so this is all I need to do for this particular work order. And I'm going to go ahead and save it because I just got another call in, and I'm going to take the next work order in line. So I can take those calls as they come in, and I'm building those work orders that are out there. Now we have a couple of ways that we can to the technician that's going to do it and let them do the work, have them email it back to me, and then I could update it and invoice the customer. The better alternative is I can open up my dashboard. So here's my dashboard, and we can see here that we got Billy, and we even have a vendor, and Paul and Dennis are on my dashboard. Now on my dashboard, I could see a one-day dashboard. So if I had 30 technicians and I want to put them all on my screen, I could see all their one-day look. Or I could do a 5-day dispatch board, and of course scroll forward and scroll backwards depending on which day I'm working on. So on the left-hand side, we can see all those work orders we have in the system. I've organized them between urgent, prompt, low priority. I could also do it with, whether it's a maintenance work order or a credit or if it's on hold. I allow you to be able to create what those categories are that you want to store the work orders before you decide to dispatch it to a person. So that one we just got in on the Heritage Apartments, I'm going to go ahead and dispatch it for this afternoon at 3 o'clock. And I'm going to give it to Billy here and say at 3 o'clock, this is where I want you to go. So I could right-click on this and email the technician, and it would send them the equivalent of a text message that says, this particular work order is coming your way. And so that's if I'm doing it manually out in the field and not using a mobile solution. Let's take this example and assume we're doing a mobile solution. So I'm going to close the screen, and now I'm going to look at it from the technician's point of view. So I'm going to go ahead and refresh their site out there because they've been logged in. So the technician can have this point of view, and the technician can use an iPad, they can use an Android app, they can use Windows Surface, whatever they're using out in the field. So you'll notice that one particular one we just did, here is the work order at 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock that I just dispatched to them. So it's going to immediately show up on their dispatch board. And so now, without even sending them an email, it shows up on their dispatch board. They can see what their next thing to do is on their particular dispatch board. So it's constantly talking back and forth between Sage 100 Contractor and the mobile solution tech tools. So you can see here, we're seeing the login here for Billy. He's got his different assignments for each day, so I've loaded up his calendar for the rest of the week, and I could have loaded it for next week too and load that in here. So it's the 3 o'clock appointment. He's ready to go out to it. So what he can do now is he can click on Notify Site, and if he knows the email address of whoever he's sending it to, he can say, okay, I need you to, he says, just put in the email address, and if he wants to CC anybody, he can do that, and then they're just going to say, on my way, and sends an email. And so he's doing this, again, straight from his iPad or tablet out in the field. So that way, they're able to notify, they could either notify the customer that they're coming or notify the office that they're coming, whatever makes the most sense. And so now we have a couple of options looking at this. I can click on 45 here and pull the work order up. Or maybe I want to do a little research before I go out there. So I'm going to click on Heritage Apartments. And one of the nice things about this system is it keeps track of our work orders. Well, one of the concerns we hear a lot of times is that, I have work orders out in the field. I'm going out to work on an AC system. I don't know who was the last person was out there and what work they did. So here I'm looking at the customer's site, and so this is the customer's information I have. This is all information that's synced up with Sage 100 Contractor. We have 3 locations out there. If I click on the work order tab, these are all the work orders we've done in chronological and reverse chronological order. That's the only equipment they have. These are the quotes we've given to the customer. The forms or any sort of preventive maintenance forms or any other forms that I've created that I've done previously in the past, and even the contacts. Who are the contacts out there? And so if I wanted to do some research before I got involved with the work order, I could go ahead and jump into it and do some research around this. But I'm going to click on the assignment screen again. And let's go into that particular work order number 45. So when they first go on the site, they're going to pull this up on their iPad or their Android app, and they can come into here and say, okay, I've started the travel time. Now, some companies use travel time and charge for it. Some companies are using it just to pay the employee. And so if you want them to start the clock when they leave one customer and then start the clock at the start time when we get to the other customer, you can do that. So they travel to the next site, pull up their iPad, click on Travel's Done. I'm going to assign Start this particular project. And now they get their project started. So then go check. So you can see here it says, please see Tom at the apartment office. And so that's the same notes the dispatcher put into Sage 100 Contractor. So that way it's communicating without having to send physical documents to them. So they can start doing the work on it. If they want to do any research, again, they could open up the work orders and see the different work orders we've done in the past. But let's say they're just pulling some things off their truck. So let me see if I have, I'm just going to put a 3x4 pipe. And so now it reaches out and looks at my database within Sage 100 Contractor of all those pre-set up parts that I put out there. So I could add those parts, and I could say I need 2 of these or 2 feet of this. If I'm going to assign those parts to a specific piece of equipment, I can do that at this point in time. And then I have 2 sets of notes, shop notes and owner's notes. So I'm going to put shop notes, installed and replaced bad pipe. And then I'm going to save it. So I can have pre-set up parts and pieces that I can pull. It's the same parts and assemblies that I'm pulling straight from Sage 100 Contractor. I could also add assemblies. Same sort of thing with assemblies. I can go out there and find a certain assembly I was looking for. Or how about one of the maintenance assemblies? Monthly maintenance, I could pull that assembly in, say I'm doing 1 assembly, and then save the assembly. And so that assembly probably doesn't have a flat rate price, so it's not letting me pull it in. So when I pull in those assemblies, I can have flat rate pricing for the technician out in the field and allow them to do it. I also have what they call miscellaneous parts. And so this could be just anything that I'm pulling out of my truck that I'm not tracking in inventory. And I can choose, is it for labor, material, or other? If I'm going to be putting this inside a unit, and I can put on here, installed 2 pounds of Freon. So I can make my notes as we go through. And so now I'm adding parts and pieces as I'm pulling them off the truck, or maybe at the very end of the work order and building my work order out. I can come into here now and add some labor time. So if I want to say, okay, I'm spending 2 hours out here, I'm just going to add 2 hours of time. So I could, clicking in the background, that clock's used for my punching in and punching out in the field, but it can also be used to push out to the work order. So I've added labor, I've added parts, I have notes that I can put into here, so I can put customer viewable notes, add it Freon. And then I'm going to come over to here. Let me see, I forgot. Yeah. And I'm going to come over to here. I can view this work order at this point in time to see what it's going to look like before I show it to the customer. So I'm going to click on View, and it shows those different parts and pieces. It shows the installation labor, calculates it all up for me. You can see it comes in here with places to sign. I'm going to go back. And before I go into this, there's another thing I need to do, because as part of my company policy, I need to fill out a preventive maintenance sheet. So the form designs that are built into the system, it's just a form design builder. And so whatever form you're using out there, you can build the form so that a person can use it out in the field and add it directly. So I'm going to click on just a sample little form out there. Give you an example how you can make little forms with yes or no, or you know, greater, best, or better. So this is my form out there, and so I can answer my different questionnaires on here. And if I want to put my signature on here, if I want to email it, I can, but I'm just going to submit that to save it. So again, that form, so it's probably saying that as part of my system, it requires me to send an email to the customer. Oh, I left out a spot. There we go. So you can choose on these whether fields are required or not. So you force a technician to complete that particular form before it goes out. So now I've completed the work order. I've added parts and pieces. I've added labor. I've filled out my preventive maintenance agreement. Now I also might want to take a picture of what was going wrong with it when I first had it. So if I'm using an iPad or Android that has a camera, I'm going to have a camera button here. But since I'm on my laptop, I'm just going to grab a picture out of my laptop. So we'll go grab I got a picture of an HVAC unit, and I could put it here. Whatever it's going to be, and then I could click on it. Again, if there was a picture of that piece of equipment we were dealing with, I could show it that way, and then I can add my attachment. So now I have the attachment of the pictures I've taken. I have attachment of my preventive maintenance agreement that I've filled out. I have my work order. Now I can get this all signed off by the client. So I'm sitting in front of the client with the completed work order and all my notes, and here's my particular work order. Now I can hide certain things, remove it. This is all modifiable to look the way I want it to look. If the technician is, who the customer's there, I can put their name in. If the job is completed, if I should collect payment, I can collect payment either by credit card or by check out in the field. Any comments they want to make. It's going to list the 3 email addresses I have attached to Heritage Apartments. So if I know I'm working with one individual, I can use their email. If their email isn't in the system, I can add it right then. Then I give the customer the tablet. They sign it. The technician signs it. If everything looks good, we accept this agreement. And now here's what it's going to do. It says, okay, when you email this out, do you want to send that form we just had and that picture? And I'm going to say yes. Now what we see a lot of companies do is they'll have this automatically CC to their dispatcher. So instead of the dispatcher noticing which ones have been done and looking at what's been completed, they can get that. Once they get that on their email, they know it's ready to be billed to the customer. So if it all looks good, now I can go on, close it out, assignment's complete, and now I can go to my next work order. So let this finish off, and then I can go back to my assignment page and see what my next work order is out there. You can see down here now it notes that as being completed. Now if I have certain authority, and we don't see many companies that do this, is that I could have a list of unassigned work orders in the area and choose whether that technician can just grab his own next work order in line, or if we're going to ask the technician to be given to the technician by the person out in the field. Now I'm going to take another example here. I'm just going to go into another work order we have for today. Another common thing we see out there, besides the things I just went through, is I need to go to the supply house and get some parts. And so with that supply house, a lot of times what the process is I call the office gives me a PO number, I go to the supply house, I give them the PO number, and I get whatever I want, take it out and install it at the job site. That PO then gets matched up in the office, and now we know it's a cost associated with the work order. So generally, like I was saying, is that most of the time all we're doing is calling the office to get a PO number, so when the invoice comes in, that PO will be matched with it. So I can give the authority, and this is a button that can be turned on or off, like a lot of the authority out there, where they can say, okay, I'm in the middle of this work order. I need to go to the supply house. And my supply house, just for simplicity, is Home Depot. And again, that vendor's coming directly out of the Sage 100 Contractor. And I'm going to create a PO for Home Depot because I'm getting ready to head out there. So while I do this purchase order is being synced up with the office, and an exact duplicate of it's being done in the office. So no one in the office has to touch this. So it creates the next PO number in line for that particular work order, for that job site, for that person. So I'm just going to put, Freon, just something on there. And the unit cost is 25. So I'm going to add that purchase order, get my work done. So you could still, from this standpoint, not force the technician to fill out the purchase order, but if all they do is create the purchase order assigned to the vendor, now when that invoice comes in, I know which work order it relates to, and I don't have to worry about them making a mistake on that. So let's go back into the work order. And you can see down here, now under purchase orders, there's a purchase order out there. Let's take another example. I'm in the middle of this, at this job site, and they want me to go into another location and do some preventive maintenance. Well, I could create a quote on the fly too. So with my tablet here, I could open up the quote screen, see the customer, see the information relating to it. I can see a note here. Whatever the note is, I can grab that other location that's at the job site. If there's a supply house I'm getting something for that I want to go ahead and grab some things, I can do that. Or I can just put in general, who is this that's filling it out? It's going to take me about 4 hours and 2 hours of overtime. I'm going to leave that stuff blank right now. Save my quote. So now that we have a quote out there, I can view my quote and take this quote and email it. So here's my quote that's out there. It shows me the labor time, the different parts, anything else I put on that quote. I can turn around and email it to the customer, and then that way they're able to see a copy of the quote, have it with us, and choose. And so example of what it looks like, here's just an example of the quote. I didn't have any prices on this particular one, just the quote that's out there, a place to be able to email this and refresh the quote and turn it. So they can put quotes out there, and again, these quotes are being synced up with Sage 100 Contractor, and those quotes then can be turned into work orders. So then I can go on about my business, hit the next one. So I'm going through, and now you'll notice I'm not calling the office. The office isn't calling me. They're just dispatching work orders to me. I'm doing the work, finishing it off. Now let's go back into the office. I'm back into the office here, and so I'm at my dispatch board. So I'm going to close this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up some work orders out here. So this is work order 45 that was updated out in the field. So notice some of the similarities we saw within this. This is my work order. There's that pipe we put on there. There's that Freon. There's that installation labor. There's that note, installed and replaced bad pipe. This is all synced up with what that technician did on the mobile device. Also, we have a copy of the picture he took out there and a copy of the signed work order out there. So both of these are automatically attached to the work order, and they're available for reviewing, for forwarding to the customer, to be able to do the analysis. So anything that I've attached that out in the field, it's putting it in here and attaching it within the system. Again, without pushing information back and forth. Generally now, I'll take this. If it's ready to go, I can come in here and modify in the quantities I want it to. I can add an extra charge on here that the customer knows that we charged $25 because there was something special that we had to do after the fact. And so if that's my final bill, then I could turn around and invoice this customer and post the bill and send it on its way. So from here, I could turn around, grab that bill that I just invoiced. So here's my invoice. I'm going to do a print preview of it. There's my invoice to the customer. I could turn around, email it to the customer directly out of the system, attach a copy of that signed work order and that picture if I want to, and forward that out to the customer. So you'll notice in here, we have a button here for internal emails. So if I use Gmail or Yahoo Mail, I have Outlook. So if I use Outlook, I just click on that and it comes directly out of Outlook and attaches the work order. It'll attach the picture if you want to, and the other pieces attached to it as it goes out. And then I go about my rest of my day for the next work order. Now, let's say technician comes in the morning and they're trying to figure out, they haven't heard anything back from the technician. You don't have a policy where the technician emails you a copy of the work order. So all they come in the morning, they're thinking, okay, what's been done yesterday, and no one's told me anything. So what I can do is I can go in there and run a little query. And so we have ones that are completed work orders that haven't been billed yet. So I want to see what's out there. So this shows me one for the Heritage Apartments, one for Ralph Kramer, and so it shows each one of those. And any of them I want to do some analysis on, I can just double-click on it, pull up the work order. If it all looks good, finish it out, bill it out, and then go to the next work order on the list. So that gives me the flexibility to be able to see what's on there, again, without communicating at all with my technician. A lot of people like the comfort feeling of the technician sending emailing also that signed copy of the work order whenever it's emailed over to the customer. It needs to be done. If I wanted to see all of my outstanding work orders at any point in time, I could pull up a pop-up like this that says, here's all of our work orders out there. I could see if they've been scheduled, if they've been finished, if they've been completed or not. I could see that directly on the system. Any of them that I'm ready to do some analysis on, double-click on it and take me right to that work order. So that way, one of the most important things of automating a work order system from a manual system is not forgetting to bill a customer. In our system, as long as it's listed as a work order, you either have to close the work order, make it non-billable, or invoice the work order and bill the customer. So that way nothing ever gets dropped. If they lose all the paperwork in the field, you still know about that work order here. And even if they created that work order in the field, it would create the work order here and be sitting here waiting to be billed still. So here's some different ones that have been just some examples of ones that are out in the field. So here's all the ones out there. Let me redo that here. I'm going to run this dispatch one here. Let's say today is the 23rd. So I'm going to see if we had any on there we could show, but this will show what work orders have been dispatched. If I want to see completed work orders. Another one we have too, which is kind of handy, we see for a lot of people, is for all that equipment that's stored at the customer site, I want to get a quick report on what equipment is there and what the information is about it. When was the last time we worked on it? What was all the things we did? So on this one, I just ran a listing of all of them we had out there. So in the heritage departments, equipment number 1, HVAC unit, there's the manufacturer, there's the last service date, there's the description. So you remember that first line is that stuff we just did today. There's the price, the record, the order number. And so for each piece of equipment at the job site, at the customer site, it's going to track all the work orders we did to that piece of equipment. And I can run reports like this to sort, by a client, by piece of equipment, by location, and find out all the work we've done out there. And of course, if you remember, if I'm the technician, I could just go ahead and pull up that particular client from the field and see all the work orders that have been done out there. So whether I'm in the office and want to look at a history of the work orders or out in the field and see a history of the work orders, both of them can be done so that we have the ability to see both sides of the equation. So I'm going to go back into here. So from here, we're managing our work orders and phone calls coming in, we're pushing them out and going out there. And so with my dispatch board, again, I can see those ones I need to dispatch, drop and drag them to wherever they're going to go. And as I drop and drag these, they're hitting that person's mobile device and assigning it to them and giving them that data that needs to happen. So makes it nice, cuts down on a lot of duplicate entry out in the field by dispatching them and having them fill out that paperwork on an electronic device so we don't have to do it twice in the company. I'm going to close this. Let's go back to our screen here. So from here, let's talk about some of the reports we can get out of here. So one thing that's unique, especially if you've come off of QuickBooks, is in QuickBooks, if you do a sales order and turn it into a work order, you can't really get cost associated with it unless you put a job associated with every single work order. You'll notice with ours, all we did was have work orders and work orders go out there. So payroll, all that payroll that goes to those work orders will flow to payroll and get assigned and charged back against that work order. Any materials I buy or any materials that I relieve from inventory will get charged against that work order. And now I can get profitability per work order. So if we look at some of the examples in here on some of the reports we can get, I'm going to run an aging report here by client. So this one shows me by client or customer what my aging report is, and those are all the ability to drill down into each one of those reports. I can also do it by client location if I want to be that specific. So because remember, every customer has multiple locations where I'm doing service work at. We can pick and choose whether work orders are taxable or not taxable. And let's take this one for example. Just going to take off the selection criteria. And so I can have whatever tax districts there are out there to be able to show how much tax we have for a certain time frame so we know how much to pay the government at the end of each month. If we want to see a history, another version of that aging report. And if I have any questions of any one of these, I just double click on it and it opens up that record inside Service Management. So that drill down all the reports works excellent. One of the things we do, and this is usually a custom report, is a lot of companies have their service technicians on some sort of a commission plan. And so this is an example of one that, remember, we know the cost associated with the work order. We know how much we invoiced it for. For this particular customer, they were paying the technician 5% after adding 30% for overhead. So we calculate the cost of the work order, add 30% for overhead, and then we pay the technician 5% of the margin after that. So you can get real creative with the reports so that we're not doing this in Excel and making mistakes, but we're pulling it directly out of the system on what's been invoiced and usually, for most people, what's been collected in the system. Now, for those few customers that don't pay on time, we also have little email reminders that we can send out. So this is an email to Heritage Departments reminding them of the outstanding invoices. So we have both statements and reminders like this to be able to send out to the customers and keep that cash flow coming into the business. And then one last look at profitability. This profitability is designed around, instead of doing it just for commission, all I'm doing is wanting to see how each one of those technicians, what kind of money they're bringing into this business based on margin. I may have someone that's doing $25,000 a month in revenue, but the margin's only $2,000. I might have somebody else that's doing $25,000, the margin's 50%. So I can look at this on a salesman or from a technician standpoint, because we have both those fields in there to be able to do the analysis. Now, in the cash receipt side of the equation, one of the things we have added to Sage 100 Contract in the last year is the ability to be able to, on those service work orders, if I display those service work orders, now what I can do is I have the option to be able to bring in money based on a credit card purchase. And so we do have the ability now that with credit cards, we can take credit cards against that service work order, whether we're taking it out in the field on a laptop or if we're taking it internally. We tie into Sage Payment Systems, which is a credit card processor, and then that way you can have the credit cards flow in, have it automatically flow through to cash receipts, and handle it all as one transaction instead of doing it in two separate places for those people that have an interest in that.